everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video we're going to be talking about this Chinese surveillance balloon. Just a few hours ago from the time that I'm recording this, it was shot down, and it's just a weird thing that's happened. When this first came up in the news, I thought it was weird, and I was thinking, okay, is this the type of event that we would put on the tracker? Probably not. Um, And then Joni, the joyous genealogist, she's one of my featured channels. She was like, "Hey, you should do a video about this," and I was like, "Well, I mean, I don't know what significance it would have. It looks like a balloon has come over from China." But her words kind of stuck with me. I kind of looked into it, and I think there is reason. Actually, I think there is reason to put this on the tracker. And so I have my second coming timeline, and I'll show you why. So this is a picture of the surveillance balloon, of course. This is on CBS17.com. Uh, and as I was looking into the balloon, this caught my eye. This is the path of the balloon. Let's take a close look at it. Do you notice any particular sites that might be of interest to us, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? I do. Right here. This is the Kansas City area. This is the future site for the New Jerusalem, the center place, which is in Jackson County, Missouri, Independence. It's a suburb of Kansas City. So up until today, the only locations that I had heard was Montana. And then I was on Facebook, and it had there was a story that came up talking about it being over Kansas, and that's kind of really when I was like, whoa, what? I didn't realize it had drifted down to Kansas. And then later I saw that it had been shot down. But then when I saw this, I was like, what? It went right over, well, not right over, but it went over the Kansas City area? That's weird. That's weird, right? We've been looking at all sorts of things and talking about Kansas City, especially recently. One of the bigger things that have happened was the eclipse of 2017. The path of totality went over Independence, Missouri. And it also included other important church sites like Far West and then up further north, Adamonte-Amen. And the path of the eclipse could not have varied very much, or else it wouldn't have covered all those church sites. So now, in 2023, we have this weird Chinese surveillance balloon, and it just happens to go over the Kansas City area. Okay, so let's look at a few things. So, of course, Facebook, we have the memes coming in, of course. This is from one of my military groups that I'm in, or pages, PT Belt Nation. Well, that didn't take long. F-22 pilot shows off the platform's first confirmed aerial kill. I'm not gonna lie though, I would be pretty happy if I was the one that shot it down. It's a cool story to tell later. And yeah, maybe I would have. Maybe I would have it painted on the side of my aircraft. So anyway. Okay, so let's look at it. Here's a BBC article that talks about the path, because China claims that they're saying that basically this was a civilian balloon, in that it went off course, and they lost it, and so the winds carried it generally in this direction. And this BBC article talks about how, yeah, that's plausible, that's how it got over here. Not necessarily that it was unintentional, but that it came over. They did like a little study, and they're like, oh yeah, this is definitely the path it would have taken, and backtracking it takes us to central China. Okay, so here's like the graph kind of showing that. And as you can see, it first entered U.S. airspace over Alaska, and then into Canada, and then down into the continental U.S. Here's like a rough idea of how this thing is constructed. You have the balloon itself, and then solar panels, and then instruments underneath. It says here it can include cameras, radar, sensors, and communications equipment. Okay. Um, there's been talk about what altitude it was at, and most articles seem to agree that it was at about 60,000 feet. And usually, when we're talking about 60,000 feet, when we're talking about aviation, we're talking about flight levels rather than a literal distance above the ground, which is called above ground level. I actually went to school for aviation to become an aircraft dispatcher. I didn't actually get into that career, but I still remember some of it. And so in the United States, this is how the airspace is divided. You have airspaces classes A through G. Um, so A is the most restrictive, and then G is the least restrictive. Um, uh, Classes B, C, D, these are for airports, right? So as you approach the airport, there's more control over you from air traffic control. Whereas with like Class G, for example, you basically do whatever you want. You're following visual flight rules. But anyway, that's not the point. This basically has to do with air traffic control. Okay. So as you ascend the classes, there's more and more restrictions. So Class Bravo would be over large airports, D would be over like small airports, so on and so forth. And then this red area up here is Class A. This is the most controlled airspace. And this is what you typically think of as cruising altitude, right? Planes don't want to fly low because the air is more dense, it's thicker. And so it's not as good on, you know, fuel efficiency. And so you basically want to go as high as you can to a certain point. And that usually falls up here usually around flight level, 30, or I can't remember how they call it, but basically like 30,000 feet to 35, something like that. Anyway, they have this entire area here from flight level 18 up to, or I can't remember how they call it, if it's flight level 180 or just 18. But anyway, about approximately 18,000 feet up to 60,000 feet. Um, And so then above that, if I remember right, then you get back to Class E or Class Echo airspace above that. And so the Chinese surveillance balloon would have been somewhere up here on the border of Class A airspace. And it would have been, a good distance away from any commercial flights, right? So it was up here somewhere. Okay, so CBS News suspected Chinese spy balloon shot down off of South Carolina coast. So they have shot it down. Let's just read a few of the details here. The suspected Chinese spy balloon that has been drifting across the United States for several days has been shot down off the coast of South Carolina. The balloon was shot down by U.S. fighter jets in U.S. airspace just after 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, U.S. officials confirmed to CBS News. Footage shared on Twitter shows the balloon falling from the sky. And yeah, there's a video here you can watch. I'm not going to play it, but I'll put the link in the description below. It's kind of cool. I wish I would have been there and been able to see it myself. CBS News has also confirmed that 2 naval ships, including the USS Carter Hall, which is equipped with a heavy crane for recovery, are in vicinity of where the balloon fell. The Federal Aviation Administration closed the airspace and issued a ground stop at 3 airports in North and South Carolina on Saturday afternoon ahead of the operation. Flights resumed shortly after the balloon was taken down. Austin said the mission to shoot down the balloon was conducted in coordination with the Canadian government, which makes sense because, again, it entered Canadian airspace too, so they would also be concerned about this, even though by this point it's gone from there. But they're like, okay, don't worry, we got it. We're going to shoot it down for you, Canada, and for us too. Chinese officials have denied that the balloon was meant for surveillance, saying in a statement on Friday that it is a civilian device used for scientific research that was blown off course by unexpected winds. And then it says here, now this is interesting. This gives you a sense of the size of it. Defense officials previously told CBS News that the surveillance equipment attached to the balloon was the size of 2 to 3 school buses. So I don't know about you, but I didn't realize that it was that large. Um, when we go back here and we look at the balloon, it's talking about this part down here, that this is the size of 2 to 3 school buses. If we go back to the picture of it, I mean, look at that compared to the size of the balloon. So this is a really big balloon. It's a really big balloon. Okay, in my mind, it was smaller, but no, it's pretty darn big. Okay, okay. What next? U.S. rejects China's spy balloon denials. Reports a second balloon flying over Latin America. Um, okay, so in the wake of the balloons being spotted, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken abruptly canceled a high-stakes Beijing trip aimed at easing U.S.-China tensions. And by the way, as of right now, I don't have much of an opinion of whether this was a mistake or if it was intentional, what the purpose was, how we should respond. I just, after learning about secret combinations, which has been just a multi-year process going back to maybe about 2017, I just don't know really who or what to trust, frankly. And I think it's hard because I think the truth is really complicated. The reason why is because there's modern day Gadian robbers and people with separate agendas doing different things. And I don't think it's easy to just like say, oh, this is like think in like simplistic terms. So I will say I'm not happy about it. I don't want some freaking balloon over Kansas. Get out of here. But it happened. So anyway, let's continue. The U.S. actually had been tracking the first balloon since at least Tuesday. So that's the date that I used for the Second Coming timeline. So this is the most recent entry, the newest entry on the timeline. So from approximately January 31st until today, February 4th. Okay. And I have it in red. I use red for any events that are either war or riots or, there's violence or hostility of some kind between nations or whatever. So that's what we have going on right here. Okay, let's go back. So since Tuesday, according to this, and at that point it was probably over Canada or about to make its approach over Canada. Now, it was not the first time Chinese surveillance balloons have been tracked over U.S. territory, including at least one during former U.S. President Donald Trump's administration, officials said. I don't know. Did you guys know that? If you did, put it in the comments below. I hadn't been aware. If they have, and I don't doubt them, I doubt that any of them actually got that far inland, right? Or else we probably would have had a story just like this. What's going on now? So anyway, Blinken's trip cancellation came despite China's claim that the balloon was merely a weather research airship, quote unquote, that had been blown off course. The Pentagon rejected that out of hand, as well as China's contention that the balloon was not being used for surveillance and had only limited navigational ability. Blinken, who had been due to depart Washington for Beijing late Friday, said he told senior Chinese diplomat Wang Yi in a phone call that sending the balloon over the U.S. was, quote, an irresponsible act, and that China's decision to take this action on the eve of my visit is detrimental to the substantive discussions that we were prepared to have, end quote. Canada summons ambassador. They have kind of like a breakdown here of kind of airspace. Okay, yeah, there's nothing else in this article. Just a few more things. Okay, now let's talk about it when it was over Kansas City. This is the part that I find interesting. I'm not gonna. There's nothing I can do to connect this to like the Second Coming or whatever, but it seems in some weird kind of way that it's some kind of sign. I don't know. It's weird. Look at this. Look at this map again. Not only does it go over the Kansas City area, it also goes over or comes really close to the intersection of the two eclipses in southern Illinois near Carbondale. So it like went over that area even. You know, it came down here. It didn't go up through here in northern Iowa. It didn't go down into Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia. It went over these like key sites. It's bizarre. Um, I don't know. It looks like it may have also kind of come close to Omaha. We have the what's it called? Winter Quarters Temple over there. So it's just weird. It's weird. Okay. Um, the Kansas City Star. Suspected Chinese balloon spotted flying over Kansas City in parts of Missouri. Let's zoom in. A suspected Chinese balloon has been flying in the Kansas City area as it passed over parts of Missouri and Kansas Friday morning. Okay, the balloon was said to be around 50 miles north of Kansas City. So here's Kansas City. I don't know if they're talking just about the city limits or if they're talking about the metro area. Let's see if we can get the city limits here. Kansas City, Missouri. Oh, the city limits basically encompass a large part of what you would normally think of as the metro area. Looks like there's one suburb north called Smithville and maybe Platte City as well. So 50 miles north. So I don't know, somewhere over here, probably. If you are in the Kansas City area and you saw this, let me know. Put it in the comments below. Let me know what you saw. So, okay, so about 50 miles north of here. All right, let's go back. Here's some pictures of it. Missouri Governor Mike Parson said Friday he had received "quote unquote" zero communication from the Biden administration as the balloon wafted east across the state, with sightings reported in Columbia after it passed over Kansas City. Quote, "We have heard no explanation or plan to remove it. Why has this been allowed to reach our heartland? Why has it not been eliminated?" Parson, a Republican, said on Twitter. Parson said his office would remain in contact with the Missouri National Guard and law enforcement agencies in the state, quote, "to monitor the safety of Missourians," end quote. The balloon gripped residents as it slowly moved across Missouri, home to Whiteman Air Force Base in Fort Leonard Wood. Fun fact, Fort Leonard Wood was not such a fun place for me to go when I went to basic training. Sometimes they call it Fort Lost in the Woods. And I did literally get lost in the woods, not because of me, but because of the quote unquote Army Ranger drill sergeant that we had. I'm being completely serious. Okay, continuing on. In the Republican dominated state, GOP officials swiftly condemned Democratic President Joe Biden for not shooting down the plane, despite the Pentagon's recommendation against a strike because of the risk a large debris field could cause to people on the ground. Okay, and then we have this CNBC News, or sorry, KNBC News 9. Shoot it down. Missourians, Kansans react to seeing alleged Chinese spy balloon 60,000 feet above them. Some more pictures here of this thing. And the governor, I guess, said some more. Missouri Lieutenant Governor Mike Cahoe called the sighting, quote unquote, deeply disturbing. Yeah, it definitely is. He continues, "It is deeply disturbing that a Chinese spy balloon is flying over Missouri, the home of powerful military bases. The fact that Missourians can see a surveillance object from a hostile nation from the ground is unacceptable." Yep, I agree with that. Brigadier General Pat Ryder, Pentagon press secretary, said the balloon was flying at an altitude of about 60,000 feet, was maneuverable, and had changed course. So it did have some kind of maneuverability. And not that anyone cares, but I'm just going to say it again. When we're talking about 60,000 feet, In aviation, usually what we're talking about is above sea level, not above ground level. In case you were, it has to do with altimeters and how planes are able to tell how high they are. And using that system, it's not like an exact measurement. It's more of like, okay, if we all calibrate um, to the ground settings, then we'll all be in the right position compared to each other. But anyway, I'm pretty sure this is referring to the flight level, not the above ground level. Uh, Discovery of the balloon was announced by Pentagon officials who said one of the places it was spotted was over the state of Montana, which is home to one of America's 3 nuclear missile silo fields at Malmstrom Air Force Base. A senior defense official said the U.S. prepared fighter jets, including F 22s, to shoot down the balloon if ordered. The Pentagon ultimately recommended against it, noting that even as the balloon was over a sparsely populated area of Montana, its size would create a debris field large enough that it could have put people at risk. The official said the balloon was headed over the Montana missile fields, but the U.S. but the U.S. has assessed that it had only "quote unquote" limited value in terms of providing intelligence China couldn't obtain by other technologies such as spy satellites. So I take that to mean that, well, yeah, it came over here, but they basically get the same information that they would from a spy satellite. So it's not really like that big of a deal. Um, it's just kind of more infuriating that there's a physical object in our airspace. Um, okay, let's see. Was there anything else? Um, ABC 6 Action News. Second Chinese surveillance balloon spotted over South America, Pentagon says. The Pentagon has confirmed to ABC News that a second Chinese surveillance balloon has been spotted transiting over South America. There were early reports Friday that the balloon was flying over Colombia and Venezuela, but there was no information until now. Quote, "We are seeing reports of a balloon transiting Latin America. We now assess it is another Chinese surveillance balloon," said Brigadier General Pat Ryder. That was the same guy that we read from earlier. And then I had this pulled up just because it has more video in case you want to check it out. So I'll put this in the description below. That is pretty wild. That would have been wild to see. So, I don't really have much more to say about it. So, the only reason why I'm really putting this down is because it went over Kansas City, which is odd. Um, it doesn't seem like much more is going to happen. It's kind of interfered with relations with China for the moment. I'm sure that as time progresses, we'll look past this, or I don't know. I don't know how things are going to go, but I don't think it's going to be like that big of a deal. It's just kind of like the story of the week for right now. And then this other one going over Colombia and Venezuela, it'll be interesting to see if they decide to shoot it down. As far as shooting it down, now it is shot down, but should it have been shot down over the U.S.? I don't know. I mean, I'll trust the Pentagon, but I'm pretty sure there's plenty of like really sparsely populated areas where it could have just crashed. Like look over here. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. But I guess like they can't know with certainty. Like you know, like let's look at this area right here. Uh, the Needles, the Pyramid, Crow Mountain. Let's go to satellite. Let's zoom in. What if you had like some campers or people out here? It's just, I think I probably agree with why they didn't shoot it down, just because you can't know where people are all the time. Maybe some person is fishing over here. Maybe another person is hunting over here. Maybe there's like a small cabin out here or something like that. So you might think like, oh, it's not going to hit anything, but I don't know, it might. And if they really believe that the risk isn't that great, then yeah, sure, just let it fly, let it get to over the water over here, and then after that, let's pick it up and see exactly what it was. Look at their technology, so see what they were trying to do, so on and so forth. So I don't think that's too big of a deal. As far as should it have even gotten this far, I would imagine that they would have noticed it before it went over land, you know? So that's the question. Why, how is it that they didn't like shoot it before it came over land? Because uh, another thing with airspace, they have these things called, what is it? I want to say it's like AZIDs, AZID. It's basically like kind of like a buffer zone that a country will have where you have to identify yourself before you enter the nation's airspace. Does that make sense? Um, I think it's called AZID zone airspace. Yeah, okay, I had it backwards. ADIZ, Air Defense Identification Zone. So here we're looking around the United States. If it'll ever pull up, please. So why well, I guess it came in up here. I don't know how accurate this chart is. You'd think that there would be one around Alaska, but um it's weird. I think it's because Alaska is very sparsely populated. Airspace up there is not quite the same as it is with the continental United States. They treat it like well, it's different over there. So, but I would think that there would still be a um, air defense identification zone around Alaska. I don't know. I don't know. But that's my question. My question is, you know that we have NORAD. It's based out of Colorado. They monitor North American airspace. So why wasn't it shot down before it went over Canada or Alaska or wherever else? That's what I would like to know. That's my question. But ultimately, um, you know, it's all said and done now. So yeah, I would love to hear your opinion. Do you think that this mattered? Do you think it was any sort of sign? Do you have any other thoughts on it? Just put it in the comments below. But aside from that, that's all I have for you. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video. If you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share this, and I'll talk to you guys later.